everywhere.
Hello and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. And for our fourth segment of today's show, let's talk a little bit of NBA. Shall we? With my first ever NBA power rankings, ranking the top 5 teams in the league according to me. And ultimately, I don't necessarily know that much about what's been going on in the NBA this year, but from what I've gleaned, I'm pretty happy with this list of teams at the top 5. All could, at the end of the season, have a superior chance to the rest of the league to lift the Larry O'Brien Trophy. I really do believe that any one of these teams could be a finalist on either side of the bracket, on either conference. But ultimately, let's just jump right into my first ever NBA power ranking, starting off with number 5, a team that I really think will get asked a lot more questions in the playoffs than now, because they do have a couple of questionable losses already, but I do feel like they're going to be tested a lot more come the postseason than they are right now, and that is the New York Knicks. And the reason I say that is the New York Knicks can get by with really giving heavy minutes to their starting 5 in the regular season. And yes, we'll talk about the questionable losses to the Detroit Pistons and to the Thunder at home. And yes, it's the Thunder, but you really want to be competitive against a team like that if you're the New York Knicks and you want to compete for the NBA championship. But ultimately, I do think that all the questions of the Knicks' depth will feel a lot more important to the outcome of their season once they're actually playing meaningful postseason basketball than right now. Because I can complain about the depth issues. I can complain that your bench options are Landry Shamet, Ariel Hukporti, and Jacob Toppin. But it doesn't necessarily seem to matter that much to a lot of people now than it will then. And they sit third in the Eastern Conference standings, a very favorable position. But I do believe that a lot of these play-in teams in the Eastern Conference could hurt a team like the Knicks, could really challenge their depth in the postseason. Who's to say that Detroit, potentially in a first-round series, can affect them a little bit more with the play of Cade Cunningham and what he could prove last night? Who's to say that the Magic, with their incredible defense, can't really stymie the Knicks come postseason time and really challenge their depth? A lot of those questions will come up in the postseason, but for now, I do believe they are worthy of a top 5 spot in my rankings. And ultimately, until this trio of Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and Karl Anthony Towns falters in a hefty loss, much like they won against OKC, and really can't prove they can weather the storm that Tom Thibodeau puts them through, then that's when I start to lose faith in them. But until then, and until the day when all 3 of those guys can be effective for them, I choose to believe that they are a top 5 team in the NBA. And a lot of you will too. But coming in number 4, potentially the surprise team of the season thus far. We have a couple of surprise teams in these rankings, but I think they're more deservedly so. This team really no one saw coming, but kudos to the incredible coaching philosophies of Ime Udoka leading this Houston Rockets team. That's a fantastic mixture of youth and experience. I really like what they're doing, both on the offensive end, really trusting a guy in Jalen Green who has some of the best explosiveness in the league, can really accelerate to the rim very well, balancing it out with rookie Amen Thompson, playing like one of the best rookies in the entire NBA, could be a sneaky defensive player of the year candidate. And then Fred VanVleet, a veteran point guard leading this team. I really love what they're doing. And let's not forget about Alperen Şengün. I really love the smaller big man, and the way he plays on both ends of the court is just beautiful to watch. Beautiful fundamental basketball that Ime Udoka is instilling into this young team, and they deservedly sit second in the Western Conference. And I'm not shocked to think that this could be a team competing for the NBA championship, and say taking the Thunder, who surprise surprise are in this rankings, to 7 games in a Western Conference final setting. I do believe that this Rockets team is surprising no one anymore. And it's going to be tough in a very loaded Western Conference to make it there, but they're highly capable of doing that. This is not a young team where one inexperienced player will take the whole ship down. This is a very well-coached team, and they really lean into these fundamentals very well. And so, if Ime Udoka can prove that his stint with Boston leading them to higher heights is not a fluke, then this Houston Rockets team could quickly become the most dangerous in the entire playoff field come postseason time in the NBA. So that's why I think the Houston Rockets deservedly sit in the top 5 in the rankings, and as potential dark horse, not necessarily a dark horse standings-wise, but a dark horse considering where they were at the start of the season in terms of people's expectations now to make the NBA championship. Then coming in number 3, a team that a lot of people will not be surprised are here, the Boston Celtics. And as a Boston Celtics fan, and as someone who knows the identity of this team and knows how well they can play and knows how badly they can also play, this feels like a semi-appropriate ranking for a team that has shown they still have the core and mentality of a championship caliber team, but still haven't necessarily put it all together comprehensively in a nice streak of games to show that they still are the cream of the crop. They're 28-11, but over the past couple of weeks, we started to see the cracks in the foundation. The three-pointers aren't hitting. The bench isn't performing as well. The return of KP has been more of a detriment than a boon to this team. So all of these questions are being asked of the Celtics. And still you're seeing the superstar caliber performances of Jason Tatum, including that 38-point performance last night to escape against the Pelicans. But I do feel like we're starting to see this team become a little bit more individualistic than we've seen over the past couple of years. And I know that eventually there will come a point in time where we'll get a streak from the Celtics that will prove that they're still a team and a force to be reckoned with, but we haven't really seen it that much. So that's why they're not in the top 2 of these rankings and still have a lot of questions to ask about their championship caliber. And so I do feel like they're still very much one, if not the, Eastern Conference favorites. But for now, I'm not as convinced that the season will end in a second straight championship as I was coming into the season. Now let's talk about these impressive top 2, because we certainly could have seen the Oklahoma City Thunder making it here and being this high in power rankings, but certainly not the number 1 team. Let's talk about the OKC Thunder, give them their flowers for what they've been able to build. And I really love the fact that, much like the Thunder, this is a team very well positioned in terms of both youth and experience to rule the roost in the Western Conference for years to come. And I do love that even when injuries are sustained in this roster, for example, Chet Holmgren being the prime example, guys step up and immediately step into the identity of this team. I love that SGA has already been a vocal leader both on and off the court. I love that all these depth pieces, from guys like Hardenstein to Isaiah Joe, who was incredible against the Knicks, on down to guys like Caruso, who can come in and do the job, Lou Dort, an incredible defensive big man. I just love that no matter what is thrown at this team, they have so many different ways to beat you. They can do it shooting the 3. They can do it driving to the rim. They can do it shutting you down on the defensive side of things. So the OKC Thunder really are one of the most well-rounded teams in the top 5. However, they do not sit at number 1, and I do think the number 1 team in the power rankings deservedly sit atop them, at least for now. And that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They proved it as such. against the OKC Thunder, I believe just under 4 nights ago, in a home victory. They're going to be able to prove it again, see if they can claim 2 victories over the OKC Thunder on Thursday night on the road. But at 33-5, the Cleveland Cavaliers are the best team in basketball. And I really think that out of all of these top 5, when you talk about the perfect blend of youth and experience and coaching, you can look no further than Cleveland. Kenny Atkinson has done a remarkable job after his failed tenure with Brooklyn in building this team up, and I love, from top to bottom, every single one of these players and what they can bring to the squad. You've got Darius Garland, who had a career-high 40, already has 5 40-point games in his Cleveland Cavaliers career. You have Evan Mobley playing fantastic basketball. You have Donovan Mitchell being the unsung leader of this team. You have Jarrett Allen, one of the most underrated big men in the league, protecting the rim. And ultimately, I love all the depth pieces that we can talk about for ages, but according to time, I can't really talk about at length right now. So, when I look at this Cleveland Cavaliers team, and we're going to talk about this team a lot over the next couple of weeks, we're talking about a team that isn't here because of some fluke. We're talking about a team that's here because they believe in what they're executing. And they're executing at a high level that not a lot of teams can beat. And yes, the Thunder played them close. And chances are they could have won that game on the road and claimed the number 1 spot in the power rankings as a result. But until a team can put a comprehensive pounding on the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm not convinced that a team in a 7-game setting can upset the odds against this Cleveland Cavaliers team. You can beat this Cleveland Cavaliers team through luck. You can beat them by matching them in terms of scoring output, but you can't necessarily beat them, if I'm looking at the postseason, 7 straight times. You can't. You can't win 4 out of 7 games against this team right now. And I feel like that's the reason why we're looking at this team as the number 1 team in the power rankings as kind of a shock. But over the first 38 games of the season, not necessarily so from how they played. But let me know what you think about these rankings in the comments below, because that will just about do it for this segment. And coming up to conclude today's show, we're switching across the pond to big news from the France camp. Didier Deschamps, their longtime manager, stepping down after the 2026 World Cup. My reaction after this short break.